Welcome to Power, Purpose, Passion, the podcast. We are really excited to introduce to you Anthony Cheam. He has spent almost 20 years in the fitness and health industry and has gone on to transition into life coaching and is now a motivational speaker, author of the ABCs of Life and U 2.0, as well as working on courses and much more. Here he is, Anthony Cheam. Hello, Anthony. How are you doing today?
How's it going, buddy? We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, which is why I'm wearing this headset right now, so I couldn't even hear you, so it's better that I wear a headset and go old school.
I think it looks good. I think it suits you.
Yeah. Breaker one.
Yeah, you'll definitely have to wear that more.
Yeah. How are things going over there up in Chatham?
Oh, things are great. You know, we're making a lot of progress in all these different projects we're working on. It feels like we're working on a million things at once. And Cam couldn't be here because he's working, so we're making it work, though.
That's okay. That's good. And fantastic to be with you guys again in your audience and to impact more people's lives. Thank you for having me again.
Well, thank you for being here. Hey, tell us about what you've been working on. How you been lately?
You know what? Really busy working with coaching, new projects myself. A couple online courses that I'm really delving into and really focused on. So on my downtime when I'm not necessarily working or with my family, I'm working. I'm going hitting the nearest Starbucks with my green tea and busting out as much as I can, as much content as I possibly can, and then organizing an online course. Working on a third book, of course. My second book's not even released yet, but I'm just continuously just delving into and gathering information, gathering wisdom, everything I've learned, because I'm an eternal student, and in order to be the greatest leader that you can be, the best possible version you can be, you got to be forever a student and continuously learning and growing and pushing the envelope and getting out of your comfort zone, stepping to your fears, and constantly reading, constantly listening, constantly growing and pushing myself to be the best that I can possibly be, because that's what leaders do and that's what this world needs. It needs more examples, and I certainly want to be that for my children. I want to be that for my clients, for the people that I'm impacting and the people that I'm working with, and and I'm channeling all my energy and focus towards the things that are directly going to impact the world, my business, my life, my spiritual life, all the entities that make up my life and the people around me. I found my focus is getting that much more laser-like in the past few months, just because I've been practicing a few things that have increased my focus. And I think one of the biggest things that keep people from their dreams is broken focus, or just getting distracted, because there's millions and millions of distractions that are constantly bombarding us, right? The internet, YouTube, TV, radio, and all these people trying to catch our attention using, so many different things like visual modalities and kinesthetic modalities and auditory modalities. And so I'm really focusing on making sure who and what goes into my ear and what I watch and what I listen to, what I read, and obviously who I hang around, and constantly focus on who I admire and who I want to be like, so I can move towards that higher level of Anthony 2.0, 3.0, whatever it is. So that's where I'm at right now in my life, and I'm continuously doing that, and that's sort of a forever journey for me, and so I'm excited about it. I often tell people, knowing that you'll never reach perfection in your life, that doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to get as close to perfection. Even though you'll never be perfect, you get as close to perfection as possible, and that doesn't mean you stop. And I'm certainly learning and growing as I go, and I'm articulating and sharpening and shaping and sharing everything I have to give in this world. So that if I die today, you know what? At least I can die knowing that I did something special with my life, and I contributed more than anything that was expected of me, more so from a level of integrity and a level that I said, you know what? I want to give, I want to live, and I want to grow. So that's basically where I am. So
that sounds really exciting. It sounds like you're working on so many things, and just especially, like you say, working on yourself and making sure you're at your best. That's really the biggest project you could work on. And thank you for we're so grateful for you just getting on with us and sharing what you're learning, and sharing how you've been growing and helping to inspire others as well.
Oh, doing my best, man. Doing my best. Do my part. As Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than you do your job, because if you're significantly harder on yourself, life gets significantly easier on you. So, you know, it's like each lesson you learn, each nugget that you get, each piece of wisdom that you get, that holds the key to the next level, to the next challenge in your life. And if you don't get that lesson in that particular challenge that you're currently going through, whether it be business, personal, whatever it is, then you don't necessarily get that lesson to get to the next level or get the next key. So, you know, these life lessons that are brilliantly disguised as problems, you know, people perceive them as problems. I perceive them as opportunities to grow, right? So ultimately what happens is if you don't fix the problems that are in your life right now or get the lesson, it's gonna keep on coming back bigger and bigger and bigger. And I heard a guy say, he says, anything that is suppressed will be expressed in later days in uglier ways. So you got to get the lesson sooner to get to the next level. And then, you know, by the time you get to the next challenge, that holds the key to solving the next challenge, and that's how you grow. You know, and I know that a few of my mentors from the past, you know, said it in many different ways, but you know, the harder that you push against and move towards your dreams and your desires, and you hunger and strive for that, and you don't quit, and you're purposeful and you're passionate in your journey. One of the things I've learned is that, you know, the universe eventually starts to tilt in your favor. And things start to work in your favor, and synchronicities, as Carl Jung said, begin to happen. Right people show up, the right circumstances, relationships start to get better, or you're presented with opportunities. You know, I love that saying that says, luck is when preparedness meets opportunity, and luck really favors the people that are prepared in their mind, in their body, and have busted their butt and work towards a purpose that is greater than themselves. So.
No, that's really good. That's really good. Actually, I got a challenge for you this week.
Sure.
You ready?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So I find for a lot of people, one of the biggest challenges is not, you know, what's going on in our health or our business or our personal life, but more relationships with other people. Because if there's one thing you can't control, it's other people's thoughts, other people's behaviors, what other people are doing, right? So how do we improve our relationships with those around us? I mean, do you know anything about relationships, Anthony?
Oh yeah, well I do a lot of relationship coachings and strategic family coaching and empowerment, and so I'm working with people all the time, whether it be their relationship with their mom or their dad or their kids or their husband, their wife, whatever it is, or even with the universe, with God, with whatever you want to call it, because I'm continuously on that journey too. You know, oftentimes I tell people in seminars, you know, the person that's listening to this conversation the most is me, because we teach that which we need to learn the most, and so a lot of times when it comes to relationships, I love what Dr. Dean Ornish says from Harvard University. He said, you know, more so than in the food you eat, the exercise, and even your genetics, the relationships will impact your health more than all of those things combined. So, you know, I love what Deepak Chopra says. He says, you know, if you want to find the right one, become the right one. You know what I'm saying? You know, Gandhi says, you know, be the change you wish to see in the world. So be that which you wish to see, and you want to, rather than seek for inspiration, be that source of inspiration. You know, rather than seek love, then be that essence of love that you wish to fulfill and wish to experience. So, I like what you just said. You know, you can't control what other people say. You can't control, you know, what other people do. You can't control the weather. You can't control the economy. You certainly influence, but you can't control it. And one of the things I've realized is that you make this kind of slight shift in your consciousness, in your mindset, that says, you know, circumstances don't determine you. You determine your circumstances by your own attitude and the attitude you bring to a certain situation. So a lot of times people go, oh, you know, my wife or my husband or my friends is not treating me well. I love what Wayne Dyer says, and this is a great analogy for life, and I use this a lot of my coaching clients and a lot of seminars. I'll say, you know, Wayne Dyer said to a lot of his clients, so who's the reason why you're like this? Oh, my mother, my father, whatever. And what he would say to them is, he would say, okay, you go home, I'll fix them, and you'll get better. That doesn't make sense at all. So you're waiting for other people to get better so you can get better? That means you got to wait. Why wait? Why not you get the lesson that you need to be learned, and then make the changes necessary to be flexible in how you respond to people, how you respond to life. I love the idea of there's two types of people: the player and the victim. The victim thinks that everything happens to them. My boss is hard on me. My clients are unpredictable. Where the player sees himself or herself as part of what needs to change. So the player says, rather than saying, my boss is too hard on me, the player says, no, wait a second here. It's not that my boss is too hard on me. It's I haven't found a good way to communicate with my boss, right? That's a different way. That you're in control of that. Rather than say I can't or my clients are unpredictable, you basically say, well, I haven't determined and figured out a way to predict my client's behavior more effectively. So again, the victim sees himself as part, or herself as part. Nothing needs to change. Everything else out there has to change. Whereas the player sees himself or herself as part of what needs to change in order to create change. So oftentimes in couple sessions, I'll say, even if 99% of the problem was your husband or your wife's, I would still focus on your 1%. As Tony Robbins says, no matter how thin you slice it, this is the metaphor, right? Many different leaders have used this metaphor, but no matter how thin you slice it, there's always two sides, regardless if one part's bigger and one part's smaller. And I'd like to share with you one of my favorite, many of you that are listening and watching this have heard the Serenity Prayer. Let me just repeat that for you. It's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, the new Serenity Prayer, which I heard at a church at one time, and he basically said, here's the new Serenity Prayer. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the people I can, and the wisdom to know that it's me. You can't change anyone else but you, your attitudes, your perceptions, your interpretations, and that takes a lot of work, because you know what? Whose rules are we using to conduct and navigate through our own world? Our own. So we're playing a game in which it's our rules with 7 billion other people that have 7 billion different rules. Yet we're seeing the world as if everyone's playing by our rules. So when it comes to relationships, it's good to establish and understand the other person's world, to understand where the other person's coming from. That old saying, walk a mile in the other person's shoes. And one of the questions I often ask people is that, whose rules do you use to make other people feel loved? Our own or other people's rules? We usually use our own. You may have heard of the 5 love languages. This is a great framework for relationships who people are listening. And my primary love language is words of affirmation. I love when people tell me I'm doing a good job, when people give me compliments and say, good job, you're a great leader, Anthony, you're a great speaker, you're an unbelievably enthusiastic, passionate human being. That's like $1 billion worth of soul dollars to me. I don't need anything else but other than that. To me is amazing to me. Now, my wife, for example, she's more of a quality time type of love language. Now, let's say I didn't know that, whose rules would I use to make my wife feel loved? My wife's or my own? I would use words of affirmation. So I could tell her she's beautiful all day long, but if I didn't spend quality, present moment time with her, would she feel loved? And the answer is no, because that's not the love language that she speaks. And vice versa. Let's say she spent quality, present moment time with me. Would I feel deeply and profoundly loved? And the answer is a little bit, but not to the extent where I feel it, because she's not speaking my language. So part of relationships is not necessarily in communication, but in understanding another person's world. That does take communication, but understanding another person's world, a worldview, global beliefs, identity beliefs, what life about, what's relationships about, when do you feel loved, and understand that from the get-go. And I believe that all relationships should go, before they go into a marriage or anything certificate where they're taking their relationship to the next level, take a marriage course, go to a relationship seminar, read books on relationships, on masculine and feminine energies, and you'll start to understand that, wow, my partner's world isn't necessarily my world. How they navigate through the world isn't the way I navigate it. My rules aren't their rules. So, Napoleon Hill wrote the book, great book, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about, the 12 riches that make people, or 12 things that make people wealthy. And one of the things he said was, I remember in an interview, he said, success in being rich is directly proportionate, and I'm paraphrasing here, is directly proportionate to how you get along with people. If you can't get along with people, I don't care how much money you have, you're just not you're just not going to feel fulfilled. I love that one movie, I forget what it was called, as a true story, where the guy goes out in the wilderness and he dies in Alaska. The wild out there or something like that, and it's a true story. And at the very end, he's dying because he ate some poisonous berries, and he writes in his diary, he says, happiness is only real when shared with others. What's the first thing we do when something good happens to us? Is to develop yourself the most and to develop the best relationships. You got to know who you are and what's most important to you first. What you want, if it's an intimate relationship, you got to understand what it is you want in a relationship, and then go and seek that out. So here's a great strategy. If we're talking about intimate relationships, here's a strategy. Write down the top 20 qualities that you'd want in a relationship. Like the top 20, 1, 2, 3, write it down to 20. Write them all down. I want trustworthy, loving, caring, whatever it is, 1 word, 2 word, it doesn't matter. Just write down the 20 qualities. And then on the second list, what you can do is write down the 20 qualities that you don't want in a person, right? Things that you don't want. So eliminate the things that you don't want. And then pick your top 5 from each. So the top 5 from the qualities that you do want, the top 5 that are like, wow, these are deal breakers, and the top 5 from list number 2 that says, you know what, these are deal breakers for me. If this person possesses quality, then I probably wouldn't choose them as a life partner. And then on the third list, what you do is then you write down the 20 qualities that you would have to possess in order to attract that person from list number 1. You understand what I'm saying? So you write down all those qualities and you say, you know what? Here are the qualities I need to be in order to attract that person that I want from list number 1. So what you're doing is you're turning it around from let me go and find that to let's become it first. A friend of mine said, a friend of mine a long time ago, he asked me, oh, I want to marry a rich woman that's working hard, so I don't have to work. And I'm like, hold on a second here. So if you married a CEO who's making $1 million a year, she's successful, she's driven, and you're a lazy butt, do you honestly think she's going to be attracted to someone like that? And you know what I'm saying? Probably not. Now, mind you, there are other factors. I mean, sometimes women or men attract bad relationships because at some level it serves them. At some level that they're hiding in their darknesses, and we won't necessarily have to get into that. But the point is that a great metaphor for that was I think it was Ram Dass or Marianne Williamson was telling a story about how there was a picture of a baby. Abused baby that was being pulled away from a abusive mother, and in the picture, the police officer was pulling the baby away, yet the baby was reaching for the mother. And you think, why would the baby reach for an abusive mother? Because it's the only thing that the baby knows. It's familiar. We always revert back to what's familiar in our relationship. So ultimately, if we are in abusive relationships, we will continually attract that because that's what we're familiar most. We get to hide in our darkness, and at some core level, we feel that that's the best that we can get. And anything outside of our comfort zone, that if it's good, it's uncomfortable because we've never experienced it before. And if you were to ask me in terms of passionate and purposeful relationships, there's one word that really describes a good, passionate, and understanding relationship. It's courtesy. Being courteous to the other person's needs. If the other person's in a bad mood, just being courteous and go, you know what? Rather than judge them and say, you know what? You're in a bad mood. Someone woke up at the wrong side of the bed. I mean, how many times have we heard that? We've heard people go, we woke up on the wrong side of it. Someone pissed in your cornflakes. Is that really making this other person feel good by saying that? No. But what if we switched it and we said, rather than judge the person, you say, you know what? It looks like you are going through a tough time. How do you need me? How do you need me to nurture you? How do you need me to support you in your struggle right now? Do you need me to shut up? Do you need me to go and get you a coffee? You need me to go to massage you? Do you need me to lay down with you? Do you need me to sit down and listen to you? What do you need so I can support you in your tough time? But how many people use that line? Because most of us are taking offense to other people's, bad moods or judgments, or I do it too. If someone is behaving badly in a grocery line, sometimes I get unconscious about it. Les Brown calls it the common consciousness, and the one thing you get caught up in, like, oh, this person's such a bad mood, what a dickhead, or what a terrible human being this person is, right? But we don't ask the question and go, wait a second here, hold on. What could this person be going through in order for them to behave that way? What if they lost their child? What if they just lost their job? And why not we turn it around and go, hold on, why am I being so charged by this person's behavior? let me examine those behavior traits that I'm denying inside my own self. Because ultimately, any trait that we are charged by in other people is a denied trait inside ourselves. So it really comes back full circle as to knowing thyself first. And Lao Tzu had a great quote. He said, studying other people are wise, but studying thyself are enlightened. The people that study themselves and their own reactions, their own thoughts, their own faults and failures and flaws, their own shadow, all those things that make us, part of the human condition. So.
No, that's great. That's great. It makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day, it all comes back to you anyways, right? And I love what you said about reacting to other people's or getting offended to other people's situation or moods, whether it be bad mood or they're getting angry, or because we see that in ourselves and it bugs us. I mean, I see that in myself as well.
Yeah.
Like with me and Cameron, you'll have arguments like, Cameron, what do you do? Why you got to procrastinate right now? And I think about it, I'm like, wait a minute, I was procrastinating. Now I'm getting mad at him for it.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask you, I find a lot of people nowadays are dealing with some sort of social anxiety, whether it be, afraid to speak to strangers or meet new people or public speaking. Like, there's so much anxiety around what other people may think of us or how they may react to us and our lives. What do you have to say about that?
Well, at the end of the day, they're saying this generation is the culture, the generation of entitlement. I think a lot of these pressures, and again, I haven't studied this, but I know I've read enough and I've experienced enough to know that, we're giving our kids everything. We're just giving them the money, the iPads, and the technology, and we're not allowing them to grow. Tony Robbins says the kids that are not allowed to fail and fall are invariably scared of failing and falling more than anyone else that has failed and fell. Okay, so the idea is, like, for example, I use a line from one of the Batman movies, and I love this. When Alfred says to Bruce Wayne, he says, "Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up." And I use that on my kids all the time. I was using it yesterday with my son. I said, and he fell, and he kind of looked at me. I said, "So, Tyven, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. You can get up, get up, get up." And the more they're confident in picking themselves back up, the more they'll be confident in going, wait a second, mistakes, failure is necessary to the road to success. They're necessary. So being afraid, without fear, you can't really be courageous. I was asked that one day, how can you be courageous when you're afraid all the time? And I said, excuse me, that's particularly the only time you can be courageous. Courageous is not just doing the right thing. Courageous is doing the right thing in the presence of fear, when you're not sure, right? So the idea is this, is that if we can kind of teach our children to grow and expand, to step into their fears, to go into their comfort zone at an early age, to go, it's okay to fall. I mean, let's say, for example, you have a newborn baby and you're teaching it how to walk. If you picked up that baby every time it fell, would it learn how to walk eventually? No. It has to eventually fall, get up, and does it 400, 500, 600 times until it finally gets. But we don't ever go, "Oh, you stupid baby." You know what I'm saying? But we continuously encourage. I mean, even when my daughter was young, she was 6, 7 months old. And, rarely do you have babies walking at that age. But when a baby falls and it kind of hurts and starts crying, I don't like to just pick them up right away, unless it's like a severe fall. But what I'll do is, most people react, "Oh my God, baby." I say, wait a second. Then I'll call my daughter's name out and say, "Saphira, look at Daddy. You can get up. Come on." And I'll encourage. You can do it. You can. And then she'll look at me and, "Oh my God, yeah, I can do it." And then she'll kind of get back and she'll stop crying. And what I'm teaching her is self-reliance, to know that she has within her a power at an early age, even 6, 7, 8 months. They're hearing these things over and over from the age 0 to 7. Literally, the unconscious mind is pressing record on everything that you're learning, everything you're seeing, everything you're feeling, everything you're hearing, everything you're tasting, everything you're experiencing. So the idea is this, is that if we can implant the seed of, okay, you have what it takes. You have what it takes to succeed. You have what it takes to face challenges. But the problem is, like as I said, if a child is never given the gift of crisis and learning to get through it on their own, but you encourage them, then they'll never have the muscle, this mentality, the emotional fortitude to push against the next challenge. You understand what I'm saying? So let's say, for example, I'm a multimillionaire and I'm giving my kids everything. I'm buying them everything. I'm buying them a car at 16. I'm giving them a house without them having to work for it. I'm paying for their school. I'm doing their homework for them, right? Imagine that. So when the real life, let's say I die and all of a sudden all the money's gone, will they be prepared to face life's challenges? Most likely, it's a definite not, because because the reality is what they're waiting for is someone to do it for them, right? So that's what it really comes down to. And I think that is indicative of a lot of the anxiety that's happening. It's indicative of us comparing ourselves to other people. It's indicative of us not stepping into our challenges, of us getting everything, sense of entitlement. And so I think a lot of times what we need to do is get our children to be challenged. I mean, my dad, when he was alive, he told me about how he was, when he was in Cambodia, his dad would throw him in the river, and the Mekong River, sharks and all this stuff, right? And he goes, "You want to learn how to swim?" And he would just throw him in the river, and then he'd have to swim to the side, right? I'm like, my gosh, but he did it. But how? I don't agree with that now. I'm not saying I agree with that, but what I'm saying is when he finally did get to shore, what did that tell him in his mind going, holy, I can swim without actually having to learn it. I can do this on my own. It built a confidence. And my dad was a strong human being. And this is a guy that came from a war-torn country. At age 17, left his mom and dad because it was, he got a scholarship to Oklahoma University, and he not knowing if he was ever going to see his mom again. And he had to say goodbye to his mom at age 17. Didn't speak the English language, and he ultimately moved here out of faith. Met his wife, which is my mom, and he basically. It changed, like nothing would ever stress him out because he was able to get through those challenges. Though, I mean, I like to call them first world challenges, right? Truthfully, if you live in Canada, they're first world challenges, whether it be money, economics, whether it be personal challenges, because we live in a society where it's like, it is like to be born, I heard one guy say, to be born in Canada or born in a first world country is to get a PhD in entitlement. Because the reality is we have first world issues. Any problem that you're going through or any problem I'm going through in living in Canada aren't really the real problems of the world. Like if you have to fight or steal at the supermarket for food to feed your children, those are some major problems. You know what I'm saying? So, or you have to walk 12 miles to get fresh water. That's a different level of problem. Whether we can public speak or not, I mean, of course, those are challenges, but it's all relative to what the rest of the world is going through. When people say to me, "Oh, I'm poor," I'll say, well, compared to who? The 2/3 of the world that are making $2, $3, $4 a day? And you kind of go, oh, wait a second, I guess I'm not that poor, right? So I love what is it? One of Elizabeth Taylor's ex-husbands, he says, I've been broke and a millionaire many times. He goes, but I've never been poor. I've never been poor. So living in the United States, you're not poor. Living in Canada, you're not poor. You might be broke, but you're not poor. The opportunities are there. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but if there's one lesson to be said here, it's definitely that we need to start teaching our children about self-reliance. And I love what Wayne Dyer says. We guide them, and then we step aside. We guide and step aside. We don't do it for them. They learn. They make the mistakes. They fail. They go through the tough times, and then you encourage them to pick themselves back up, because then that will give them the confidence to go, I've been through tough times. I can get through this challenge. But if you consistently give your children everything, fix everything for your children, when time comes when they need to do it on their own, they're not going to be armed with the tools and the strategies and the knowledge and the fortitude to get through that challenge because the muscle has never been developed.
Yeah, I think that'll help a lot of people. And like I said, it's almost an irrational fear to be afraid of others or what other people think. If you're in the frame of mind of gratitude, right? If you're thinking, wait a minute, like look at where I am in this country, first world, and all my problems are like this compared to who knows where else, right? And I like that. I think that'll help a lot of people. It's going to help me. I know that much. So.
Oh, and you know what? Truthfully, there, Brent, like the fact that we're having this conversation right now says to me that the world is advancing in a slow pace, but the world is advancing, expanding. I mean, 10 years ago, we weren't able to do a hangout like this and then throw it on the YouTube, and then people can watch it for free. Now it's accessible to everybody. I mean, I did a TED Talk last year, and it was just, now people are watching it, and it's like, wow, people can just have access globally, whether you live in Africa, Australia, it doesn't matter. And so it's expanding. Global expansion is amazing. So everyone has access to the universal tools and knowledge and wisdom. It's great. And you know, to your effect, I have to say, the people that I have really utmost respect for are people that are marching to their own drumbeat. I love what Henry David Thoreau said. You know, says, if a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps he's marching to the beat of a different drum. Perhaps he's marching to the beat of a different drum. Let him dance to the music that he hears, no matter how measured or far away. And then Les Brown continues, I remember in one of his audios, he says, you are marching to the beat of a different drummer, and those who do not understand is none of your spiritual business. If people don't understand it, if people don't care, you're marching to a different beat. You're marching different, you're dancing to a different step. That's okay. Be the noble ones, be the brave and bold and noble ones that are going against the grain. Don't go with the 95%ers, the herd that are looking at the fire and then moving away from the fire. You know what? The people that are living life are moving towards the fire and figuring out ways how to make the fire grow, or make them, and again, it's a metaphor, make the fire grow within inside themselves, or put out the fires and build empires. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think what's creating a lot of this anxiety is the fact that, you know, is to get out of our fears. We run from them, when really the fears are there to teach us something. You know, I love what Tony Robbins says. He talks about fear and excitement are long lost dance partners. You ever notice that if you go bungee jumping or whitewater rafting, there's a fear in you, right? Uncertainty, like, man, if I fall in here, well, I could die. But there's also that excitement that goes, whoa, my gosh, this is exciting, and you feel alive after you do something like that. Or, you know, you being a musician there, Bren, I'm sure there were times, you know, you were practicing your guitar when you first started playing guitar, and you finally played that song perfectly for the very first time. How good did you feel? Yeah, like your emotions are like in another stratosphere, because you're just like, oh my God, I've done this. But it took practice and failing and failing and failing and failing and failing and failing. You know, there's a saying that says, if you want to double your rate of success, double your rate of failure. Make more attempts than the other guy. And so I think that's an important element, a component to living the most beautiful, bountiful, and universal, integral, passionate, compassionate, strong life. I'm always wanting to step into my fears, wanting to push the envelopes. You know, I have goals, little goals that many people don't know about. I want to speak multiple languages. I want to play multiple instruments. I want to write multiple books. You know, I want to go to multiple places. I want to do this. I want to do that. And because it's possible for me. I know it's possible. And if I set my mind to something, like people that know me, when I get focused, nothing can stop me. Like nothing. And sometimes it can be a weakness in some cases, because then it takes away from the importance of like family and my spiritual life as well. But it can also be a strength. So.
Yeah, and like you said, it's possible. Why shouldn't you dream like that? Why shouldn't you have those goals for yourself when it's possible? And I think we limit what's possible for ourselves when we know anything's possible. If we set our mind to it, if we're 100% committed, if that's where our focus is, we could make it happen.
Yeah, I often tell people, you know, to what you said, I often ask people, and this was asked to me, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? You knew that nothing was going to stop you. You were committed. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And most people go, oh my God, I would go after my dreams. You know, and it's like, as you said, people limit themselves because they see themselves as less than what they really are and truly are. I mean, I love, you know, kicking from a philosophical, spiritual point of view. If you look at your heartbeat, just feel like, do this for me. Point to yourself, Bren. Point to yourself. Okay, with one finger, just point to yourself. Go. Okay, so most people, it's funny that you're saying that. Most people, when they do that, they go like this, right? They point to their heart. They don't go point to their head. They point to their heart, right? Yeah. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. You screwed up my whole thing, man. No, the idea is this, right? Your heart beats, right, 100,000 times a day, and you kind of go, my gosh, what force, what energy is allowing that to beat? I mean, you can be a neuroscience, you could be a doctor in physiology, you can understand the whole body and how it works, but you could never get to the actual source of what's making it all work. I mean, at this very moment, our Earth is spinning at thousands and thousands of miles per hour, yet we feel like we're not moving. Our senses tell us we're not moving, yet we are moving around in space at thousands and thousands of miles per hour in perfect harmony with everything else. So there's a great saying, anytime I get down on myself, I always affirm to myself with this. I say, knowing that this force, which has never yet failed at anything that is undertaken, you can go with the trust and the knowing and certainty that it will not fail with you either. This force is with you now. You have access to it. Are you accessing it? Are you tapping into it? Are you using it? Because the reality is, you can use this force in constructive ways or destructive ways. Napoleon Hill, I love what he says about the two envelopes. I was saying this to a teenager the other day, and I was saying to him, you have two envelopes. One envelope is all the benefits of committing yourself to excellence, disciplining yourself, learning the tools and strategies to live a successful, happy, and fulfilling life. And all the benefits is listed all there. And then the second envelopes are the consequences of living a half-lived life, consequences of living a lazy life, consequences of indulging in procrastination and giving into your fears and letting those fears own you and being a prison to those fears. Which envelope do you choose?
The good one.
The good one, right? Right? And you go, oh my God, here, if all of these in this envelope are all the benefits and these are all the consequences, rationally speaking, most people would, all of them would choose the actual goods. Man, I want these. But what stops people from going to that envelope? Fear, of course, fear. And this idea that, oh my God, it's not going to work out, or it's too hard. It's funny. I talk to people about their dreams all the time, and they kind of go, I want this, but yet they're not willing to do the work. Les Brown says, it's going to be hard. Everything that is hard may not be worth it, but everything that is worth it will definitely be hard. And he says this, if it's hard, then you do it hard. If it's hard, then you do it hard. And make it okay that it's hard. Because if you don't make it okay, then when the tough times come, you're gonna quit. Because you're not gonna expect it. That you're not anticipating that it's gonna be hard. You know it's gonna be hard, and you do it anyway. Right? So you feel the fear, acknowledge the fear, but you do it anyway. But that's how you grow. That's how you expand. That's how you really sharpen who you are. And that's how you expand into the human that you were and potentially have access to. And in terms of the envelopes are concerned, I'm always looking for that next level of Anthony to get closer to that envelope, no matter how hard it gets. And I'm continuously affirming myself. One of my favorite affirmations, that I say to myself is, what? If I'm going through a tough time, I'll say, I believe in my ability to handle this. I believe in my ability to figure things out. I believe in my ability to find a way, no matter what. I'm going to find a way through this. I'm going to get the lesson, and I'm going to move up. Because the reality is, 3 steps, I tell people. Gut up, shut up, and strut up. You got to gut up. You got to start. You got to step into your fears and get courageous. That's it. Step into it. Shut your mouth. Stop complaining. Stop criticizing. Stop condemning. And walk into it. Take action. Gut up, shut up, and strut up. If you're complaining about, bitching, complaining about it, it's not going to change anything. I tell it to my clients. You know what? I can't steer a parked car was one of my things that my mentor said to me. Like, if you're complaining, you're not doing anything. That's not going to change anything. So you got to gut up, get over it, shut your mouth, figure out some solutions, and move toward that solution. 3-step process. You can use that for everything. Gut up, get strong, courageous, focus, shut your mouth, right, and move forward and strut towards the area you wish to fear. Because the reality is, Bren, and from a mental point of view, as long as you're focused on all the injustices, as long as you focus on how things are not working out, that debilitates your ability to focus and put your attention on things that are going to make you move forward. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're focused on your fears, that's what's going to come up, and you're not going to be able to focus on what it takes to overcome your fears, to move you closer to your dreams and your desires. And I love Tony Robbins, where focus goes, energy flows. If you focus on what you fear, you're going to feel it. If you focus on what you want, you're going to get that. You're going to track that. This is not some metaphysical thing. I tell you, every morning I'm meditating before I go to sleep. I'm meditating and visualizing how I want my life to be. And as a result, I'm creating that. I've become a co-creator in that, because that's my vision, that's my purpose, and I'm energized because of it. And here's the other thing. You got to put as much as you possibly can into this. Energize yourself and bring as much energy into your dreams as possible. Because the reality is, if you go half-ass at your dreams, you're going to get half-assed results, which will then reinforce your half-assed belief, right? But if you go full tilt, passion, 100% commitment, no matter what, I'm in this for the long haul, no matter what, I'm not doing this. As long as I've got a breath and as long as my heart is beating, I'm going full tilt at it. You'll take massive action, which will then get you results, which will then reinforce a belief and the faith that you can do it. You can do anything. So I think for everyone that's listening and watching out here, you got to be bold. You got to be passionate. You can't, you can't stroll to your goal, as Celeste Brown says. Or, if you're casual about your dreams, you become a casualty, right? You can't be casual in them. You got to be totally focused and willing to do whatever it takes. Wayne Dyer had this one thing, and I was listening to him in an interview, and he said, if I were to ask you right now, on your willing list, what are you willing to do to make your dreams come true? And you write down everything you're willing to do. Everything. You start writing down things. And then on the second list, you write down everything you're unwilling to do. And you know what he said at the end of it? He said, your unwilling list should be very empty. Now, unwilling to murder someone, yeah, within the confines of moral and ethical standards. You wouldn't murder someone. I certainly wouldn't do that. But in terms of just everyday unwillingness, if it means moving to California for a couple months, if it means, getting up, only getting 2 hours sleep at night, you do what's necessary. And I was asked the other day, what's the difference between successful people and mediocre people? And I thought about it for a moment, and I said, you know what? Here's the major difference that I've discovered in my study of it. And many people have said different things, but it's this. The successful and happy people do what's necessary even when they don't feel like it. In their relationships, in their business, in their finances, in their health. Let's take health, for example. I got up this morning at 3:20. My brain didn't want to get up at 3:20 this morning. But I did it because I do what's necessary even when I don't feel like it. Even when I don't feel like it. The greatest athletes, the greatest musicians, the greatest entertainers, they do what's necessary even when they don't feel like it. And they put themselves in that courageous state, and then they move towards it no matter what. Because the reality is, Bren, if you listen to your feelings all the time, none of us would have gotten out of bed this morning. Because we were like, oh, I'm tired, and that's how I feel, so I'm just going to listen to how I feel. Sometimes you got to override that feeling, and it says, and at times your inner conversation is going to say that you shouldn't do this, you can't do this, and you're going to have to acknowledge it and then override it by going, all right, let's connect to something bigger inside me, that force that's beating my heart now. Acknowledge the fear. I'm not saying deny the fear, denying those complaints. No, I'm saying acknowledge them and then step into them. Gut up, shut up, and strut up. There's a great book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and one of the things that I remember from that one book, it was one thing that I read, that if I read that one line, I tell you, that book would have done me huge value just by reading that one line. It says, action cures fear. Action cures fear. And, there's no fear, is Alfred Hitchcock, I think it said, there's no fear in the bang, only the anticipation of it. And I'm sure when you get on stage, you get that nervousness and you're playing or singing, whatever it is, or speaking, whatever you're doing. But once you're doing it, where's the fear? It's gone. Right? So you act. You got to get over your fears, step up, gut up, shut up, and just strut up. And I'm repeating myself, but I'm hoping, repetition is the mother of all skill, Tony Robbins says, and I'm telling you that you can have the life that you want, whether it be in your relationships. I know this whole talk is about relationships, but these principles and practices can be applied to your relationships. And I want everyone to know that you don't have to be a victim. You don't have to be a victim of your circumstances. James Allen says circumstances don't make a man; they reveal him. Adversity introduces a man or woman to themselves, and so that's what we must do. Yeah, of course. And I have to tell you, just to kind of amplify on what Les Brown says, if it's hard, you do it hard. But here's the thing: to have a passionate relationship, a good relationship, it's hard. And I often tell people, you think that I got all figured. In fact, it's harder than it was 5 years ago for me, because I'm more aware. I've got a greater standard for myself. I have different challenges, in my life, where I am in my life stage. But I love it. I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't want the easy way. I often tell people there's a hard way and the harder way. You choose. You want the hard way or the harder way? Which one do you want? I want the hard way, but I want the harder way, right? So I don't want it easy, because anything that's easy, you just don't value. I mean, winning $1 million and 10 million, that'd be great, but it's just, you just don't value it unless you earned it. You really earned it. All these things can be bought, like drugs and alcohol and tobacco, that gives you that sense of euphoria, that temporary feeling. That can be bought. But pride and self-respect, that can't be bought. That's earned by your blood and sweat, by being passionate and showing integrity in the tough times. I have to say, I've failed many times, but I'm okay with that. I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, and I'm here to experience life to the fullest.
Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Anthony. Do you have any final words?
No, that's great, Bren. Thank you for having me again today. I go off on tangents. I know I do. I'm a crazy person, but that's who I am.
No, it's good. We love you for it. We love you for it.
Thanks.
Well, we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Anthony.
I appreciate it. Have a great day, man.
Peace.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Power, Purpose, Passion, the podcast. If you've received any value from this podcast, please leave a review on iTunes. It would help us tremendously to get on the new and noteworthy and to share Anthony's message with even more people. For more information, go to anthonycheam.com or implicitentertainment.com, and all the info should be there. So thank you again. We'll see you next week.